Thank you for your patience. I'd like to take this time to thank the departing governors, Lillian Calavecchio. Amongst all of her House duties, Lillian was instrumental in the development of the clubhouse renovation plan that was presented to the membership last year. That work continues, and my hope is Lillian continues to serve on the various committees that will develop a plan that will be presented to the membership for approval. Kurt Holloway has filled the role of treasurer for the past 4 years. He has worked tirelessly to ensure the financial health of the club, and after hearing his presentation later in the meeting, I know you'll agree. His contributions to the financial health of the club are immeasurable. I have asked Kurt to continue his participation on the Finance Committee, which he has graciously agreed to do. And Joe Records has led the Green Committee for the past 3 years. When it became apparent that the green renovation project needed to be moved up on the schedule of capital projects, he, along with Jimmy Alston and the Green Committee, coordinated the tasks of architecture, design, and contractor bidding. Joe also worked with Jimmy Alston to make the wall project a reality. I have asked Joe to stay on as a member of the Green Committee to see the golf course renovation to a successful completion. He too has graciously agreed. I want to thank the three of you. The Eagle Creek staff. I would be remiss if I did not open my remarks by recognizing the dedicated, reliable, and selfless staff of Eagle Creek. Typically, the first person you see when you arrive and the last when you leave is a member of our staff. Always available to serve with a smile under their mask and a polite hello. The fact is, what makes a great club great is its people. And we have a great staff. So I extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our staff, and I know I speak for all of our members. We appreciate all that you do for us. COVID-19. I look forward to the day that I don't have to talk about COVID-19. To say the least, this past year has been challenging for everybody on this planet. No one has been beyond its reach. Families, communities, businesses have been destroyed. People have died. With that as a backdrop, the Board of Governors recognized that at the end of the day, all we can do is take care of our little corner of the world. Our focus was and remains to this day, keeping our members and staff safe, the club open, and our employees working. Starting in March of last year, the Board of Governors was being provided with daily updates from the CDC, Florida Department of Health, and all other reputable organizations and medical experts. We were in contact with at least a dozen other local clubs and clubs throughout the United States on their protocols. It was clear that no one person or group had the definitive answer on how to proceed. Protocols varied widely, and medical advice from the experts was no different. By early summer, the Board of Governors was meeting at least weekly by Zoom to formulate the Eagle Creek protocols. It was obvious that the only way to eliminate risk was to shut the club down. At that point, that was something we were not willing to consider. It was clear that if we were to remain open, it would require that we manage the risk. Risk management has been the cornerstone of our decision-making. The challenge was and remains, how does the club offer a level of service and activities that provides a reasonable level of club experience that our members expect and pay for? After some stops and starts in several areas of the club, we were able to keep golf, tennis, pool, fitness, and the restaurants open with well-defined protocols. To help guide our members and staff, the Board of Governors developed the 5 pillars. Wear a mask. Maintain 6 feet for social distancing. Wash your hands regularly. No mass gatherings. If you don't feel well, stay home. So how have we managed the risk? The 5-pillar protocols, a common sense approach, easy to understand. On-site testing. In the past year, Shirley Russell has administered over 400 COVID-19 tests to our members and staff. Shirley's contribution to the community's health is immeasurable. In recognition of Shirley's contribution, the club has made a $1,000 donation in her name to Marib College of Health and Human Services at Florida Gulf Coast University. Marib College trains nurses, and if we have learned one thing from this pandemic, we need more nurses. Keeping members on campus with food and beverage takeout and delivery, and the pantry program. Minimize the number of events and gatherings. Although the number of cases in the state have lessened, we must remain vigilant. The Board of Governors has no plan at this time on loosening the current protocols. We will evaluate the situation over the summer, and hopefully next season we can return to normalcy. Now I'd like to talk about the membership and marketing activities that have been going on. If there has been one positive that has come out of the pandemic, golf, tennis, and all outdoor activities have grown in popularity. Couple that with large segments of the workforce recognizing they can work remotely. Florida real estate is booming, and Eagle Creek is getting its share of increased interest and sales. Last year, the 2019-2020 fiscal year, which runs from November 1st to October 31st, the club sold 37 properties. In the first 4 months of fiscal year 2020-2021, the club has sold 27 properties with an additional 17 pending. That should close by May 1st of this year. That's a total of 44 with 6 months left in the fiscal year. Average days on the market are down from 188 to 129. Renovated properties are selling quicker and for more money than the homes that haven't been renovated. And the feedback that we're getting from prospective buyers is that the golf equity initiation fee of $55,000 is a value compared to like-kind clubs in the area. The clubhouse maintenance and remodel is the last major piece in the upgrades we believe are necessary to deliver the country club experience our members deserve, and one that will attract new members in the future. The maintenance and code issues include a leaky roof, a porte cochere that's too low and does not meet code. Currently, emergency vehicles would not be able to pass under, which would create a potential hazard. A remodel of the men's and women's locker rooms are way past due. Club operations is in desperate need of storage, which they are currently using the decommissioned steam rooms and saunas in both locker rooms. The club also needs a proper multifunction conference room that allows staff to meet with vendors and offers members a space to meet for club activities. Clubs that expanded outdoor dining before the pandemic told us that the members loved it. Since the pandemic, they are the most popular tables at the club. An expansion of our deck makes sense and is an amenity that all of our members will enjoy. And lastly, a remodeled interior is also needed. The size and scope will be determined by the membership. A subcommittee of the House Committee will be formed to consider options. Your participation is most welcome. I will close my comments on the clubhouse remodel with several facts. In the past 2 fiscal years, the club has had an attrition rate of 7%. That means 7% of our membership has turned over each of the past 2 years. This year, our membership turnover will be more than 10%. Using a conservative turnover rate of 7 to 8%, in 5 years, our club will be made up of 35 to 40% of new members. We know these members will be younger and looking for updated amenities, which will include a championship quality golf course, a practice facility, a quality pool and fitness facility, and a top shelf tennis facility. We have those. Our clubhouse has good bones. It's a beautiful building, but it is dated and needs work. It is the Board of Governors' role and responsibility to protect and grow the value of club assets, to ensure the viability of the club for years to come, and to be ready for the future. We must act now. The focus of the board in the coming year is to develop a plan with the input of the membership to renovate the clubhouse and to make it an amenity that will attract future members and enhance the club experience for all of our club members. And lastly, the wall. After years of promising, the wall has become a reality. As promised in the beginning, it's a precast concrete, 14 feet high, 1,362 feet long. It'll be landscaped on both sides with irrigation on both sides. And the cost of the project is $860,787, 310 of that from the Irma Insurance Settlement Funds, and $550,787 out of capital funds. So I'm sure you're all going to enjoy that wall's finally done, and we can put that issue to bed. I now would like to turn over the program to Don Madalinsky.
Our main priority were safety of the members and safety of the guests and our staff. Our goal was right out of the chute was to keep the golf course open, to keep tennis, fitness open, and give everyone the club experience that they were looking forward to having. We did delivery. Many clubs out there, of my friends out there who run clubs, do curbside pickup, but not a lot of them do delivery. We also had the pantry. Even though the whole state is wide open, we've been very careful to keep the inside of the clubhouse at 50% capacity. And like Mr. Sweeney said, outdoor dining has become very, very big. We've
Louder, please.
continued to work on the 5 pillars: mask wearing, hand washing, distancing, and making sure that our groups are small. And that's very important for our safety overall. We've limited our tables numbers to 8 people in a group. By keeping everybody distance, it's worked out very, very well, and we've stayed open. I was talking to Phil Newman just before the meeting, and he had mentioned another club on the East Coast that plans on shutting down their club to guests until after Easter, just to be on the safer side. And many clubs are experiencing exactly what we are. We'll continue to keep everyone safe, and we'll continue to move forward. What was really interesting this year is our H2B program for our staff worked out very well over the last few years, and it's working out very well again this year. We have a trailer across the street that we bought from the Feedors a few years ago, and Jose and Omar came back along with Jose's friends, Oscar. We also rented an apartment because we're anticipating to have more people, more H2Bs in. Unfortunately, the government shut down this program in January, so currently we have an empty bed at our trailer and 2 empty beds at our apartment. Hopefully by next year, we'll be able to fill these. So right now, even though through our best intentions, The H-2B program has been good, but not as good as we'd like it to be. Overall, I think we've done very well. I'm very, very proud of the way this year is ending up. I'm very proud of how our staff has performed. I'm very proud of our kitchen. Our kitchen, without our kitchen remodel, there's no way we could have done the pantry, the carry-out delivery, and the type of food that we're providing right now to our members. So overall, we're pretty excited for this year. We're very excited for this year to be over also and maybe get back to normal next season. So through the off season, we'll continue to provide for services, but we really want to focus on next year because we think it's going to be a barn burner, a real barn burner. And I think people with all their pent up demand will just be very excited to be back at Eagle Creek. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Holloway, and we'll be sharing a screen with a PowerPoint presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really glad this day has finally arrived. The outpouring of comments I've received from the membership about constantly bombarding me about how's the audit going, Kurt? I mean, I'm in the gym. Kurt, how's the audit going? I'm on the golf course. Kurt, how's the audit going? I'm in Costco. Kurt, how's the audit going? So today I'm going to answer the question, how's the audit going? I hope you don't mind my little attempt at humor. I always tell that joke every year. So I first want to recognize the Finance Committee. The folks that you see listed there on the screen are your fellow members who this year have contributed substantial time and effort reviewing exciting things like budgets, financial reports, bank proposals, and yes, even answering a few membership emails. So I want to say to that group, thank you very much. I appreciate your guidance throughout the year. I also want to thank Sue and Claudia in the office for their great work this year. Okay, I want to talk just a little bit about club finances and how they work. You can go all the way, yeah. There's one more. We keep operating and capital funds in different buckets. We keep those funds very segregated. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and how we do that today. So the day-to-day business of the club, that is subsidized by your dues. We budget operating revenues and expenses to equal each other every year so that we come down to a net budget of 0. The capital side of things is things like investment in long-term assets, financing transactions, and those sorts of things. These are funded by your quarterly capital contributions and also by the cash that we generate through the sales of memberships. And that would be net of the refundable equity that is returned to resigning members. So we keep those items very separate and distinct, and we don't commingle those funds. So how did we do this year? As always, we're audited by RSM. The audit report within the last week has been approved by the Finance Committee and the board. We received an unmodified opinion. That's a good thing. And on our financial statements for the year ended October 31st. It was one of the cleanest audits that I think we have ever seen here. We had no audit adjustments, no comments from the audit firm. It was just a very, very good audit this year. If you want to see a copy of it, you can go to the club's website and under resources, go to governance and then financial archive. The audit is posted out there. So for the year ended October 31st, we came in beating budget by $328,000. This was done during a pandemic. And there are two major reasons we were able to achieve this good result for the year. And the first one is outstanding expense management. Our revenues came in this year almost $500,000 under budget. So a little over 60% of that was just in food and beverage alone. A substantial portion of that was in golf revenues. So what we did was had to take a strong look at our expenses and attempt to control them as best we could. So expenses came in about $470,000 under budget. If you're paying attention, you'll realize that math doesn't work. How did we achieve a surplus? Well, I'll tell you, the other thing was we were able to take advantage of a provision in the CARES Act. The CARES Act was approved by the folks in Washington early in the year, or I guess maybe second quarter of the year. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. There was a provision in the act to reimburse employers who kept employees working during the pandemic. And we fit the bill. We qualified because we had under 100 employees and we were in a geographic region that had a government shutdown order at some point during 2020. The program was called the Employee Retention Tax Credit. This is different from the more publicized PPP loan program. That's not one that we were able to qualify for, but we did qualify for this employee tax credit, the retention tax credit, and that amounted to well over $350,000. So it was not chump change. It was significant to us. Without that credit, we would have been very close to budget for the year. We would have potentially had a small deficit. So with this surplus, what do? I think significant uncertainty still remains in the economy and with the pandemic. So I think we need to see how this current year plays out, see how the rest of the pandemic plays out, and then we can determine what the proper use of the surplus funds will be. Another big item that we did this year, and I have to again thank the Finance Committee, we were able to lock in the loan terms for the 2021 golf course project. If you recall, that $2 million loan was approved last May by the membership. We were able to negotiate with 4 different banks, review those proposals, meet with those players, and we landed on an 8-year program with a fixed interest rate of 2.63% with Fifth Third Bank. That's the bank we have been dealing with. They put forth the strongest proposal, and we are very pleased with the result of the work that we were able to do on this project. So that loan will begin at the end of this year. Okay, a couple other highlights this year. We were able to pay down refundable equity by almost $500,000 this year and by $2.4 million over the last 4 years. That's big because those future obligations are now repaid, they're off the books, and as that continues to continue to decrease, that really bodes well for the club's financial future. We also had a record year in terms of generating capital cash through membership sales. We generated over $680,000 this year. And again, that's the highest on record. The only bank note that we have on the books is the Crystal Lake note, and that balance is down to $235,000. And those members who chose the installment method 5 years ago are essentially making those payments. As those payments come in, we turn around and pay that loan down. So it was a good year, and we are in good financial shape. One of the benefits that we have for working with RSM for our audit, they have a very robust database of clients And they provide us with a report that shows how we're doing in various areas against our peer group as compared to our peer group. Last year, our golf dues were $10,200. The average Southwest Florida club's dues were $12,700. And another source was the Beekman Group put together a survey I was able to locate, and they indicate the average was $11,800. So you can see we're positioned very well there. The expenses per member, we always fare well here. You can see we're substantially lower than the other average clubs in Southwest Florida. Food and beverage, the loss or subsidy per member, we came in, and I adjusted these numbers. When I say adjusted subsidy, that's because I didn't want to taint it with the retention credit that we receive. So I've adjusted that out of the numbers. So we're about 15% below the average in terms of the subsidy per member for food and beverage. A couple other benchmarks, capital assessments. Our capital assessment last year was $2,000 for a golf member. The average Southwest Florida club is $2,200 per the RSM survey, and the Beekman report says just a little over $2,000. Joining fees, Mike talked about this, that our joining fee of $55,000 is seen as a value. The average Southwest Florida club, according to the RSM survey, is $74,000, and the Beekman report comes in at $58,000. So you can see we're well positioned there as well. Okay, so how are we doing this year? We're off to a good start. Our revenues are down a bit, although February golf revenues are ahead of last year. Go figure. For the first quarter, that would be through January 31st, we were exceeding operating budget by about $5,000 in the first quarter. So we're right on budget, essentially. However, one thing that's just off the charts good is, as Mike talked about, is membership sales. If you recall, in a previous slide, I said we had generated last year $680,000 of cash, capital cash through membership sales. We've exceeded that in the first quarter, and we're headed for, by far the biggest record year that we will have ever had in terms of cash collected from membership sales. So it's going very well there. And that really concludes my report for finances. And at this time, I have the honor of introducing our guest speaker for the day. Phil Newman is a partner with RSM, and he is their national industry leader for private clubs. He's a published author on the subject. He's just very well respected individual in the private club industry. And I'm looking forward to his comments today about what he's seeing in the private club industry, what the trends are, and what other clubs are doing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Phil Newman.
Thank you very much, Kurt. How's the audit going?
The audit went great.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. I got to ask, I'm not the actual audit partner on this account, unfortunately, based on those audit results. But it's great to be here. I haven't been to Eagle Creek in quite a few years for some reason. So hopefully whatever I said the last time that meant me not getting an invitation back until today, Mr. President, hopefully that won't happen again. So it was very nice driving in through here. As you can hopefully see from the slide, I'm going to talk about a few things here this afternoon, the club industry macro trends that we're kind of seeing across the board. It's always interesting to sit and listen to, your own board talking about what they've had to deal with, the challenges they've had that you've all had as club members here at Eagle Creek and maybe club members elsewhere in the country. So definitely wanted to revisit those and look at some of the positive things that are coming out of that. and the terrible year that we've all had to deal with personally. I want to take a dip back to 2008 briefly, because I think definitely one of the things we've seen is clubs, the strongest clubs, if you will, really trying to avoid some of the mistakes that they made, and a lot of clubs made back in 2008, the real sort of last major recession or depression, whatever term we want to put on it, and see if we can make sure we avoid those kind of problems going forward. You've already seen some numbers, so I guess I have to prove to Mr. Holloway that I am still a CPA officially. So I will put up some other metrics as well. I'm going to slice and dice things in a slightly different way. Really, again, just to give you another view of what's going on in the club market all across Florida, as well as within South Florida as well, and look at clubs of your kind of size when we look at operating revenue. And then hopefully a reminder of what really makes us strong. So let's go. Leading club indicators. So I don't know if you can see at the bottom of this. This is actually the NCA is the National Club Association, which is a great organization out of Washington, D.C. that lobbies on behalf of the private club industry. And they produce, I think it's quarterly, they produce this trends report. So these are national statistics, and really I wanted to share it because we're very, very positive, and I can tell you that the more recent data that just came out just kind of echoes this again. This hasn't gotten worse, and in some cases it's definitely gotten better. And I think when you look at the overall outlook for the fall of 2020 and into 2021, there, that second line, if you can put those together, we've got 83% of the respondents, and these were, I think 500 or 600 clubs across the entire country that responded to this survey. And certainly back then in September, we were seeing very, very positive outlooks, and a lot of that obviously was driven by golf, as well as some of the other outdoor amenities that we're able to offer. The bottom few questions, you can certainly take a look at the responses there. The overall level of activity, certainly going up. Golf experiencing high levels of participation, and back then, Golf Data Tech had reported that through August of 2020, there had been more than 10 million rounds extra played in 2020 over the previous period in 2019. So that was back in August. They just released their 2020 rounds data, and golf rounds nationally were up 13.9% over 2019, which is just staggering, and the largest increase they've seen since 1998. So certainly, if anyone doesn't believe that the golf has really gotten a boon out of this, the data kind of proves it out that things are going well. The other measure they look at, Golf Data Tech, is retail sales equipment. Right? Are we buying? We're buying all the things we need to play golf, and those numbers were up 10.1% in 2020 over 2019. So again, very, very positive. But you can see the item at the bottom that I've highlighted in red, which is a term and a theme that I'm going to visit through the rest of my presentation, that our club is perceived by members as a safe haven. And you can see when we add together the strongly agree, you're at 96% there. So very, very positive. But before I went on, I just wanted to echo on some of the things that I've heard the president and Kurt say, as well as Dawn's comments, to again give you the flavor that you're not in this alone. Golf continues to roar back. The data up there kind of proves that out and tells us that's fact. Food and beverage challenges, Dawn, the fact you guys were able to do delivery, pantry was a big thing. The pivoting that went on was just phenomenal. And if you get a copy of our last year's trends report that Kurt referred to, you'll see the photographs. The photographs are normally of very happy people serving and nice new facilities and things like that. And the pictures were filled with people serving in masks and all those kind of things that the clubs had to do. But outdoor dining, absolutely. Those clubs that were able to do the outdoor dining improvements over the last couple of years really had a leg up, if you will, on others that kind of maybe didn't go down that path as quickly. So certainly something to think about. And I don't see that going away anytime soon, certainly not in South Florida, obviously with our climate. We can even roll out the patio heaters in that 1 week in January where it gets kind of into the 60s, Dawn, I think it is. So we can all survive that. The labor challenges, Dawn made mention there of the H2B program that you guys use, and that is 100% correct. That is probably the single biggest challenge facing Florida clubs right now. You guys have 2 or 3 people, it sounds like, that you would typically have. I have clubs that I work with on the East Coast of Florida that bring in up to 350 for seasonal employees from the UK, Ireland, South Africa, as well as the Caribbean, etc. Unless they're already in the country and have been working up north, that they can come back down, their visa hasn't expired, they ain't getting in. Right now, the UK, as you can probably tell from my accent, I have a lot of family still back in UK and Ireland. They are facing a £10,000 personal fine if they leave the country. So those kids that normally come over aren't coming anytime soon, despite the fact that the vaccines are certainly rolling out. So what you need to be aware of is, Dawn said, you only have 2 or 3 that you got to fill that hole. But what's happening? If you follow any of the big clubs in Florida on the East Coast or on this coast that get a lot of those employees typically, well, they don't have them. So what are they doing? They're looking harder and harder at the local community. And even if you're in the southwest of Florida and you see clubs advertising for hire in Palm Beach, in Boca, they already have the apartment buildings that they bought for all those guys. So, that payroll challenge, that personnel challenge, that's not going to go away. It seems like there might be opening up those visa programs again here in the relatively short term, but that's just the program. That doesn't get people, again, willing to come back into the country, which is the whole other issue with that. Investments in technology, again, continuing to see a lot of that. That was kind of accelerated. Obviously, we're doing a Zoom meeting here today. A lot of that has been accelerated over the last year, and we're coming up on a year for sure. Increased focus on cleanliness. I heard you guys talk about your 5 pillars, and certainly, that's the bedrock of what a lot of clubs have tried to do to stay operational and still provide something to their membership over the last year or so. What we've seen as cleanliness has become a marketing ploy. It used to be something we did, but we did it in the background. Now we want the members to know, and we're kind of stealing from the hotel world, where we want to be in the face and members can see and feel safe coming to the club and using the facilities. And lastly, before I flip the slide here, amenity additions and enhancements continue. I know you guys did the kitchen 2019, I think. And I know you've got the golf course renovation coming up. And again, obviously with those golf numbers, that sort of speaks for itself. But also, again, we're seeing a lot of improvements to food and beverage offerings. A lot of food and beverage offerings and enhancements in that regard as well. So with that, I'm going to flip to the next slide here. The refuge. So, I'm never sure the average age of the people I'm talking to, especially when you hear the turnover in Florida clubs. So hopefully there's something on that slide that resonates with you. I know we've got some people from the Boston area here, so I felt I had to put cheers in. Maybe I'll get invited back for putting Woody and the guys up there. The Simpsons, Seinfeld for the New Yorkers. I don't want the Boston people and the New Yorkers fighting. We have enough of that. And then, if you don't watch Friends, maybe your kids or your grandkids watch it. But the core issue and the reason we're putting this up is the thing that made all of these things really successful. One of the big parts was, they had that hangout. They had that place where they felt comfortable, they felt safe, they had a lot of fun with their friends and their family. And if more and more what we're seeing with clubs, particularly clubs in the Sun Belt, whether it's Florida or South California, Arizona, becoming the refuge for their membership. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see that now this is a bit ironic here. And I'm not sure I would have used the smaller picture up here, given what happened to Mr. Woods last week. But thankfully, he seems to be doing okay after his car accident. But that was actually the tagline. If you can see the smaller picture, we've been using that tagline for so many months because of those golf numbers that you've been seeing. That golf, it was been nothing like it since the first coming of Tiger Woods. And certainly we see that a lot. When you see, if you want to see negative press about our clubs and our golf pre-March of 2020, 20, just go through the Wall Street Journal, because they seem to really, really get a kick out of just bashing golf clubs, golf club communities, and things like that. And now this is what they're writing, because this is what's happening. And a large part of that goes on, what they're trying to do, a lot of these clubs, and enhance their refuge, and we're using that term consistently now, avoid the circle of death that we saw in 2008. In 2008, we saw people reacting. We didn't know what was happening. Cut costs, defer capital improvements, inevitably leads to a cut in quality. Ultimately, that devalues our brand. And that's what I've been hearing you guys talk about here today, your brand and the value of the brand that is Eagle Creek. You do that, you're going to lose members. You're going to cut prices further. We're going to devalue the brand, and round we go. You guys, you can see the quote in the middle from Drucker. You guys have already made some great business decisions, some that are always courageous, right? The kitchen renovation, the golf course renovation. You've been doing the right things, and I'm sure you guys will continue to do the right things that a lot of your competitors, and they are competitors, are already doing and continue to do in South Florida. So I did threaten that I was going to have to get back into the numbers a little bit, and unfortunately, this is kind of where it comes. You can see this quote from, I just picked the Motley Fool investing site. There's lots of other places to get a similar quote, but the most tangible indicator of whether a company is becoming more valuable is how much it reports in its stockholders' equity on its balance sheet. And certainly, as Kurt said, if you want to take a look at your audited financial statements, look at the bottom line, look at what happened to your members' equity, and we'll show it in a minute here. But this is certainly one of the most important things that we want to see. And what goes into that? So here's some of the other bubbles that we're looking at. And one more, please. Okay. So you can see here three statistics that we have been focusing on probably since 2008, pre-2008. We hardly even looked at balance sheet metrics. And you can see the headline here, stay balance sheet strong. But more and more people are focusing on the balance sheet. Any of you that have been successful business people, you know that while it's interesting and important to understand your operating statement, looking at the balance sheet tells you where you're going to go in the future. So here's three stats that we've kind of put together. And we'll go over these specifically in the next slide, but I wanted to take a second here to share them with you, because we believe that, used together, these things will all promote the sustainability and the enhancement of your refuge, and lead to all the things that were alluded to earlier by the president, Kurt and Dawn, in terms of enhanced membership value. Debt to equity ratio. So just comparing your total liabilities to your total membership equity. And what I sliced these in a different way. These are all clubs in Florida that are in your operating revenue ranges, but it's called the $6 million range. So trying to pin it right down to clubs of your kind of size in that measurement, if you will. The green bubble, the 5-year amenity improvement rate for every dollar of depreciation expense, because this is what I would say. Listen, you built something 10 years ago, Dawn. I paid for it back then. I paid for it once, I'm not paying for it again. That's what I'm going to tell you, right? This is why you got to look at depreciation. And you got to compare your depreciation expense every year, which is a measure of the using up of the asset or the return to the investor of what the money they put in. So what this is telling you, that these clubs in Florida, for every dollar of depreciation expense that they incurred in the last 5 years, they put $1.56 back in the capital improvements in the club. And the final piece, the members' equity growth rate, and you'll see here we're looking at about 4%. So overall, that net assets or members' equity increased year on year, 19 to 20, up about 4%. You can see the national stat from the Club Managers Association is 5%. So again, an important stat that that people are looking at. But so now this slide gives you the Eagle Creek numbers through your most recent fiscal year end and compares you to these clubs of similar size across South Florida. And again, Kurt referenced another way to slice the numbers in terms of Southwest Florida. And I can certainly reference that as well, because you look even better, I think, compared to even some of the local clubs. But so Eagle Creek, the current ratios, that's your current assets compared to your current liabilities. Can you pay your bills for the next 12 months? That's the easiest way, I think, to explain that. And you guys can, 1.44. Oh, sorry, can we go back? Thank you. 1.44 versus the trends, didn't even make it to 1, and you want to be above 1. Debt per full member equivalent, you're under $3,700. Clubs of your size in Florida, over $5,300. Your debt to equity, the lower the number, arguably the better, 0.23 versus 0.39. And here we go. Here's this important number. Over the last 5 years, $1.58, 158% versus 156. So for those clubs across the board, we're kind of keeping pace. We're keeping pace, which is good. And again, in the members equity growth rate, about 3%. Now, if we just leave this for 1 second and refer to the Southwest Florida market on its own, some good and some other interesting things. That debt per full member equivalent number for just Southwest Florida clubs is actually almost $13,000. So you're way, way lower than that average. Your debt to equity ratio for those clubs in Southwest Florida is 0.49. So you're better than that. But this is the interesting one. That 5-year amenity improvement rate for just Southwest Florida clubs, the number is 176%. So that would say that you haven't kept pace with your depreciation compared to Southwest Florida in the last 5 years. So just giving you a couple of different ways to look at the data, but we'll go on to the next slide. And this is interesting because it's not from me. This is not my statistic, but I think it's very interesting. And you can certainly look these guys up. They're one of the most respected consulting firms, data analysis firms in the club industry. They've been around for about 10 or 15 years now, Club Benchmarking. And their data is from all across the country. And they will swear on this statistic because what this shows you is really a measure of the age of your facilities. And you can see how they slice it. They come down to the median of all, and they've got about 2,000 clubs all across the country in their database. So they come down to the median of all those clubs is about 46%. Net property and equipment, that's after we back out depreciation, versus gross, which is just the cost of what we bought. So when you buy an asset day one, that number is 100%. You'll correct me, Kurt, if I'm wrong here, right? Because I'm not really a numbers guy. So, so it's 100%. And as you don't keep up your facilities, you don't reinvest in them, that number comes down, comes down, comes down. So you can see where they've sliced and diced it. If the midway point is 46%, and they say, let's look at Group B, if you can read that. So Group B, we got between 46 and 55%, likely to have some deferred maintenance, but nothing dramatic. Okay, we're doing okay. Group A, over 55%, fresh, relevant assets, well-maintained, consistently maintained over time. And then Group C, if we get below that 46%, they're pretty definitive in their statement here. If your club falls in this bucket, immediate action is required. So I went back and pulled your numbers from 2012 through to, because it was as far back as I could go without trying too hard. That's why I just picked 2012, guys. No science to that. So back in 2012, that number for you guys was 56%. So you can see how the number has dropped over the last few years. You get the spike from 19 to 20 with the kitchen renovation. You can see the impact of it right there. And you'll get another spike when we do the golf course. But I think when you talk about the last time, and I think I was here right after this clubhouse was built, which was what, 2005, 6, 7, something like that, 2006. You know, this is a big part of your property equipment. So the longer you defer doing something significant on the clubhouse for all clubs, that's where you start to slip down towards that Group C. So look up Club Benchmarking, lots of interesting data up there for them. And I like to finish it with this. We started with the refuge. Here's a poem from 1957, Robert Dedman, the founder of Club Corp. I like this. I've been using this for a few years. It's a haven of refuge and accord. And my goodness, if that hasn't been what we've needed in the last 12 months, I don't know what is. And again, if you read the recent Wall Street Journal articles, you can see why people are flooding to golf course communities. The challenge is becoming, no, you can't buy a house now, right? That becomes the problem. In so many of the clubs and communities in Florida that I'm talking to. Good luck if you can get property. But if you hit the button once more, I'll leave you with this quote from Henry Ford, because I think this is really important. And this is kind of what I've heard, I think your president, your treasurer, and your general manager talk about in their remarks. All three of them made reference to the people that work in the club, the people that work for the club. What the work I've seen all committees and boards at clubs do in the last year, I don't know that anyone would ever volunteer again for a position like that, given what everyone's had to deal with in the last year. But at the end of the day, it's about your reputation, which you certainly can control by taking care of your people, including the members, and taking care of your reputation by taking care of your assets, which is what a lot of those statistics that we've touched on this today hopefully prove out. So I think that is the end of my prepared remarks. And with that, I will step away from the microphone.
Hello, Eagle Creek. First of all, I need to thank all of our golf members for their patience over the last 6 years. You let us close the course twice to regrass the fairways and then the rough. And now we're closing for a third time to redo the greens. Thank you. I hope you agree with me that the changes have improved the condition and playability of our golf course. When I joined Eagle Creek, the grass on the course was a 419 Bermuda. This grass does not do well in cold weather. And this is when we're here in cold weather. Bermuda grass needs 80-degree days and 60-degree nights. In January and February, if you cut the 419 Bermuda down to the desired height, the grass died. So the tees, collars were kept long grass being better than dead grass. We are fortunate to have an excellent green superintendent in Jimmy Alston. Unlike many supers, Jimmy has the confidence in his abilities to experiment with ways to improve the condition of the golf course. He put paspalum grass on the practice tee and 3 tees on the course as a trial, and it was a resounding success. The Green Committee wanted to do the whole course in paspalum at a cost of about $2 million. But while traveling to different courses and talking to their superintendents, 2 things emerged. One, paspalum grass around the greens is sticky and difficult to chip from. Celebration Bermuda was gaining popularity because it handles cold weather well and can be cut down to the height we wanted. And it was cheap. You let us do the fairways in Celebration. Success again. So we then wanted to do the roughs in Celebration and close the course again. But again, you approved. In 2014, we retained Gordy Lewis, golf course architecture, to advise us on improvements we wanted to make to the course. Luckily, he and Jimmy work extremely well together, and they came up with the following course improvements. We raised and reworked number 1 and number 9 fairways, which were underwater most of the summer. We installed retaining walls and reshaped holes number 4, 12, 17, and 18. Then we reshaped number 15 green approach and surrounds. And finally, we reshaped number 16 fairway and installed needed drainage. I hope you'll agree with me that all these changes have been positive. When Irma hit us in 2017, believe it or not, it was a blessing in disguise. The damaged pine trees were infested with pine beetles, and we were forced to cut down over 500 trees. The insurance monies we received allowed us basically to clean out the woods on 7, 10, 14, 15, and 18, and give the course a much cleaner look. Our pine straw budget has increased, but we've kept the weeds at bay. As you've been told, our greens are 22 years old, and the drains are collapsing beneath the surface. That's why we need to completely rebuild these greens to USGA specifications, and that will be done starting in April 5th. We will not be changing the green surface. The contours of the greens will remain much the same. But the following changes have been approved. Number 2 green, because of its susceptibility to summer flooding, will be raised 18 inches, but the overall shape of the green will remain the same. Number 3 green will be widened, and the cart path to the right will be moved farther to the right into the woods. Number 10 green will be slightly reduced in size and be egg-shaped from the front left to the rear right. And finally, number 11 green will be widened in the front. That's it. Everything else will remain the same, and the grass will be TIF-Eagle just as we have now. In recent years, one of the major factors enticing new members to golf courses has been the practice facility. Our range is too short, our chipping green is too small.
Jim can't see this.
We've come up with the following solutions, and Cassie and I did a little YouTube video, which hopefully we can show you now.
Hey, Eagle Creek. We are here at the proposed new short game area. And I've had a lot of questions from people on just what's it going to look like? Are we going to damage the condos? Things like that. So where I'm standing would be where we would hit pitch shots from that way to the green. Bunkers this way, hitting towards the range. There will be some area to chip, probably going back as far as that fire hydrant there, but it should not impact the condos. I'm standing in the area where the sand bunkers and then the green will begin. And the green will go back into the woods there, which will all disappear. Your worry about people getting hit from the range, there will be a 6-foot berm with areca palms to protect this area from the shank shots. So you'll have 30 or 40 yard pitch shots that you'll be able to hit into the greens, as well as bunker shots, as well as 20, 30 yard pitch shots, and we'll be able to accommodate 8 to 10 people at one time. And then in this area here, we're going to probably have to put up a fence with netting to protect the cars. We need to protect the condos at all costs. Please feel free to ask Jimmy Olson or myself if you have more questions concerning this area, but this will give us a state-of-the-art short game facility, which is what we need to compete for members. Now we're going to go over to the driving range and explain the changes that are going to happen there. We're standing at the back of the existing driving range right now. What we're going to do is take out this area here, move the range back beyond those palm trees. They'll be parking back there. The chipping green goes away, and there'll be more hitting stations out that way. And we will have target greens out there raised up so you can see the ball land. We're doing away with the back range because we need the distance. Losing 8 hitting stations there, we figured we could get another 11 hitting spaces here. So with everybody practicing and warming up, we can accommodate everything. Picture, the condos are back here. There's the bunker. Chipping area is here. Chipping area over here. And behind the green, we'll have some berms built up so that you can hit chips up and over a hill to duplicate most of the situations that you'll come across out on the golf course here. We just wanted to show you this green to give you some perspective of what the short game area should look like. So again, thank you for your patience and thank you for attending the meeting.
Well, thank you, everybody that participated. Joe, terrific. Kurt, thank you again for that stimulating financial report. And a special thanks to,
As always.
as always, and a special thank you to Phil Newman for visiting with us today, and your comments were spot on. We recognize at the Board of Governors that we need to stay ahead of depreciation. As you said, the golf course will give us a bump. But in my comments, you heard about a future clubhouse renovation, which again is needed here to stay relevant, stay competitive. And as you astutely pointed out, the golf courses around us are our competitors. And as we get future members coming through, potential future members coming through the gate, we've got to have the best mousetrap. And having a state-of-the-art clubhouses as part of that. So thank you very much. I'm going to close out my comments and open up the question and answer period for those participating on Zoom. So. If you can hear me, I want to thank you for patience during this Zoom meeting. We're kind of in new territory here on this scale of the meeting. So.
Somebody making a comment?
Yep. What about the clubhouse renovations?
Question was, what about the clubhouse renovations under chat?
Oh, okay, sure. Clubhouse renovation, as I said in my opening comments, is something that we know that we need to do. We haven't defined the scope of the project at this point. We want to have input from the membership. So that's something I would stay tuned on. But we've already met with an architect and talked about some ideas. And as those develop, there will be committees that you can participate on to be part of that process. I don't have a definitive plan to tell you about today.
Mr. Houghton has raised his hand, so maybe he could unmute himself and ask a question.
Thank you very much. My question is actually for Kurt Holloway, and I think every year I have a tendency to send Kurt an email saying, thanks very much for your treasurer's report. You always do a great job. This will save me some time. I won't have to do that. But I have two questions for Kurt. One, which was, he had mentioned that we had reduced our expenses during this period of time. And I was just wondering if there was any teachings or any learning that we had of those reduced expenses that we'll be able to carry on for future years. And that's one question. I'll let him answer that, and then I'll quiet down. The second one was, do we actually reserve for large assets? So like from an asset management perspective, do we take some of our largest assets and continually reserve for those kinds of things so that in future years when they have to be replaced, do we actually do that, or is there some other way that we handle that? And I'll put myself back on mute. Thank you.
First question was, what did we learn? Well, I hope we learned some things. I think when we do the budgeting process this year, we're going to look at some things for sure. I think one of the big areas was labor, and I think part of how we were successful in controlling expenses was we were able to scale back things because of the scale of members that were here. So the number of members were less. We were able to scale our operations back a bit. So those are the kinds of things we did. Now, when we have a full complement of members on site, we will need to spend more money because we can't lessen the membership experience, if you will, for everyone. So we were able to do that because we had less folks here. Now, as for your question on reserve, we have a reserve study that we have just completed in the last couple of months. So we engage a firm to come in and do a reserve study. It looks at about 400 different components and assets around our campus and gauges when those items need to be replaced. So yeah, we do look at that.
Those are the financial highlights.
Okay, also ask everybody to mute can everyone mute your microphone if you're at home? I guess we're getting a lot of feedback from folks that aren't muted.
Kurt, I don't think that microphone in front of you is active.
Hold on.
I think what we're hearing is the microphone from the laptop picking up the sound.
Is that any better? How about now? That's good? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I think we learned, the first question was, what did we learn during the pandemic about expense management? I think what we learned was we could control some things, but we did have a lot less folks, members on campus. So when we have a full complement of members back on campus in Eagle Creek, in the community, that we can't jeopardize the membership experience. So we're going to need to spend some of those dollars again. In terms of reserves, we have a reserve study that we refer to, we look at. It goes through about 400 different assets or asset components throughout the whole complex for the club, and determines when those assets will need to be replaced. So we refer to that frequently when we're doing capital budgeting and those kinds of things. So that's one of the tools we have. We are also in process of completing a master plan, if you will, for major capital improvements. So that's my answer, Ed. I hope that answers your question.
One of it is.
Where does the money come from?
$3.1. Yeah, the estimated cost of the Greens project is a question that's coming up on the screen. That's $3.1 million.
We'd like to hear the Q&A.
Other questions?
Got a question, I'm typing it in.
Oh, well, maybe I'll hang up and let somebody else.
We have another question here.
Are we still taking questions?
Yes, we're still taking questions.
Okay, I have one. It's a comment on the fitness center. The lights on a fitness center, if we can get off of the other subjects we were on, are on practically all night long. It shines into our condos in Building S. The window blinds are always up, and then the light goes down into the lake and reflects back up into through our windows also, which doubles it. And it's just too much light here. We can't even get to sleep. We'd like to have something done with those lights.
Okay, Mr. Primus, we'll look at that. Thanks for letting us know. I'll get with Barry right away, and we'll get with access control to make sure those lights are off also. So thank you. But anybody who's not speaking, if you could please mute yourself. Also, we're hearing dogs barking, etc.
Hello, can I ask you a question?
Mr. Farley, yes.
Sure, Mr. Farley.
Yeah, I'd like to compliment Don and his staff on the excellent service, and I'd also like to compliment the board on the COVID response team and keeping our club safe and financially secure. However, I am tired of loss of services, and I don't understand why we couldn't do nine greens one year and 9 greens the next year. And the talk is that because it costs more. Well, $1,000 a member is over $400,000, and that's peanuts to most of the people that are here. And I'm glad that you can serve things, but then we're going to lose our clubhouse for a year while they redo that if it passes. And I would like the board to consider how we can maintain services for our membership while we do this construction, full services. And I'd also like to say that as a golfer, I'm being penalized with an additional assessment because I've already paid my green fees, and I have to pay green fees to go off base to golf. And I think the club should pay for that, and we should pay for the carts. And but I love this place, and I want to be here, and I appreciate all the hard work you do. And I know that you're doing the best effort you can for us, but I would like to see the services maintained throughout all this work that we're going on. Thank you.
It's going backwards.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Farley.
master plan for capital improvements, will this be shared with members?
Yes. Did everybody hear that question? Will the master plan for capital improvements be shared with the membership? We are working on it today. As a matter of fact, I had a meeting on this today on developing a master plan for capital improvements that, as I said in the meeting, that we can pin on the wall and everybody can read. That's figuratively. And you deserve that. And so we're working to deliver that.
Oh,
Next question, please.
wow.
Mike,
Yes, sir.
Mike, it's Bill Van Sice.
Hi, Judge.
You mentioned earlier that on the clubhouse renovation, you were talking to architects. Are we going to build upon what we had developed before, or you're switching gears entirely with some new people?
No, we've paid for a lot of work, and we certainly don't want to throw that away. But I think if I was to describe what we're doing is somewhat of a cut and paste. There's some things that were spot on. There were other things that, other improvements that we can adjust to give a plan that the membership will approve. And what are those today, Judge? I couldn't list them for you, but we do have some ideas on how to be more efficient with the future proposed renovation.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just watch. Oh, there.
That's great, because you're spot on. We have to renovate the clubhouse, and it's just a question, it's just a question of when we get this done.
Sure.
Let me tell you that I appreciate the Zoom meeting. I'm sitting here freezing my tail off because as a good Canadian, I took advice not to travel. And so I'm being penalized by sitting here. Last week it was 35 below. I don't want any, I don't want a lot of sympathy, but it was damn cold. And
being from Maine, I know what cold is, but 35 below is, that's the major leagues.
Yeah, I've got a question. It's John Fitzwater. Can you hear me?
Sure, I can.
Okay. The golf course is closing on April 5th. Is it opening on November 1st?
That's the schedule.
And is the driving range, the practice facility, is that going to be open in part during the renovation, or will it be totally closed?
Totally closed.
No way to keep it open for part of it, right?
No.
Okay.
I would love to, John. But the reality is we can't work around, the golfers. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I have a question.
Oh.
This may be a dumb, naive question, but when the golf course is refreshed, if the greens are refreshed, will it be reassessed for handicap purposes? Will Florida Golf Association or the PGA come out and reassess the handicapping of all the holes?
Well, that's a great question. It's something that we can do, but knowing how they do it, it probably will not impact the slope or course rating. A lot of that is determined by length of the hole, length of grass, bunkers, but it's primarily the length of the golf course. So,
okay.
But it's a great suggestion, and I'm going to take that to the Green Committee or Golf Committee, whichever feels they have jurisdiction, and see if we can arrange that.
I mean, this may be a personal issue for me, but I think for me, number 9 is a lot harder to play than number 1, and one is number 7, one is number 11, I think, or something like that. I mean, it just seems to be worth to have it assessed, maybe take the A players and take their scores and see how they do, and run it through the system.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Point well taken. Thank you. If there are no more questions, we will close this meeting.
So moved.
And I just want to say a couple of
Sure.
words here.
Before we do close the meeting, Don would like to speak.
We did have an issue where people weren't being able to sign on to Zoom, locked us out at 100. That's my responsibility. We practiced and repracticed this, but it's the first time we've done something this large. If you notice in your upper left-hand corner of your screen, it says recording. So we should be able to download this and get this back out tomorrow sometime when Cassie's in, and everybody will get a chance to hear the great numbers that Mr. Holloway put out and Mr. Newman. So we'll do the best we can to get this out again. We apologize for this issue, and it's all on me.
How am I going to do this?
I don't think he knew he was on
the speaker.
all of a sudden.
So again, I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to close this meeting. Do I have a motion to close? Dominic, thank you. A second? Second. All in favor? Aye. This meeting is closed. Thank you.